Welcome to YDG Podcast. Today, our discussion is going to be entitled How Nutrition Plays a Major Role in the Future of Young People. My name is Dr. Michael Biney, and I'm the host for today. With me to discuss is
Benedicta-Jeshurun Fosu. I'm a YDG Delegate and also a medical doctor.
Emmanuel Delali Fayorsey. I'm a YDG Delegate and a medical doctor as well.
Okay, then let's zoom straight into this particular discussion. Fayorsey, I just realized that Ghana, I just heard that Ghana is actually transitioning from developing country to a low middle income country. In fact, it's a low middle income country now. Therefore, you realize that our disease distribution is changing from the disease where it's an infection to diseases related to diabetes, hypertension, and all those things. So it's actually very pertinent. What do you think about this particular discussion we're going to have today?
I think it's a particularly important discussion because looking at that transition means that we are doing less of communicable diseases or infectious diseases. Thankfully, due to things like WASH, which is water, sanitation, and hygiene, we are doing things like that. And the infection prevention, we are moving towards more non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, diabetes. And it has a lot to do with our lifestyle, basically, and the lack of physical activity that most of us are sort of, should I say, some form of pattern or habits that most of us are doing less and less of physical activity and some form of sedentary lifestyle. I think it's quite worrying and something we need to discuss as we are doing today.
I just realized something. Even in the consulting room, I've realized that oftentimes when somebody has a heart condition or a chest problem, we immediately would think that if it's an old person, we think it's a heart attack, it's likely to be a heart attack, we do certain things. When it's a young person, we also have a way of thinking about it, isn't it? So we say if somebody has a chest problem or even an abdominal pain and it's up, we think that it's a gastritis. But I've realized that young people would have someone like a 23-year-old, instead of it being a gastritis, it's actually a heart attack that the young person is having. So when I realized that we're going to have this particular discussion, I was like, it's a very, very good one because it actually ties with Sustainable Development Goal 3. I think the target 3.4, where I was talking about the fact that by 2030, we should be able to reduce non-communicable disease or death related to non-communicable diseases by 1/3, premature of them. And the premature ones are normally found in young people. So I think this particular discussion is a very, very good one. What's your take on it? I mean, just preliminaries.
Okay, so first of all, I want to define what health is. So according to the World Health Organization, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. And so nutrition, which we are discussing today, is a very crucial part of health. And good nutrition, for that matter, has a lot of health benefits. One, it helps to boost our immune system. Two, it decreases the risk for one getting these non-communicable diseases. It also enhances the chances of one living, it enhances longevity.
Good.
Actually. And I think that it's an agenda that we have to really push. This podcast that has been organized today is one of the interventions that would see to it that young people are healthy and not dying prematurely.
Yeah. So, I mean, focusing this particular discussion, making it very relatable. One of the worrying things we've realized, or I've realized just by scanning, observing, I realized that we're having a lot of fast foods because of the way our working environment is now. For instance, at first, let's say 50 years ago, we'll have people going to the farms. They come home earlier than usual because by the time it's getting to 5 o'clock, the sun is actually going down. So they'll get home before time. They cook very well before they eat. But now people stay in traffic for long hours. They get home at 8, so they have to just put in one or two things or buy food from outside. So you realize that we're having a lot of people taking in fast food, and also realize that we're having a lot of fast food joints actually cropping up. So it's actually a very, very big issue when it comes to fast food joints. I want to have your takes on it. How fast foods is affecting the health of young people. You may want to tie it with non-communicable diseases as well.
Okay.
Right? Fayorsey, yeah.
So personally, I think the term even fast food may not be a bad phrase. I mean, it's commonly used, but I think maybe the proper terminology would be junk food.
Good.
Because looking at how fast-paced our world is, most of us would like to get something that we can easily munch on. It does not necessarily mean that something that we can easily munch on or get it within the shortest possible time to eat is necessarily bad. But when we think of it in the terms of junk food, then we are looking at the fact that it has certain nutrients or certain parts of food components in excess beyond what is needed. It might lead to disease. So for example, it might have excess of fats, it might have excess of salt, it might have excess of sugar. And these are things that when in excess affects our health. So when you look at it through that lens, then we can understand it properly. What we commonly say is fast food. So not necessarily food that you can easily get your hands on, but food that has excess of these food portions. So ideally, your food quantity should have 50% carbohydrates, 30% proteins, and 20% fats. But when we look around, that's not ideally what we are getting. Sometimes you can have food that is very high in fats, very high in sugars, and it's very difficult for your body to digest. And looking at our schedules, the time we take in those foods, we are not going to use those nutrients, right? So those nutrients become stored, and when they are stored in an inappropriate way, they become fats. Okay. And those fats remain and become harmful. So these fats can actually block our blood vessels, may block the blood vessels leading to our hearts. That's where we have the heart attacks. May block our blood vessels in general. That's where you can have the hypertensions. When you take in sugar to a certain point where your body is having challenge controlling, that's when you have the diabetes and all that. So in essence, we have to look at it in a certain angle that it's not about how quickly the food can be made, but in what nutrients are in excess that we don't need, and what are the proportions, how do we eat them, and the timing, and what is done after we eat those foods. I think those are the major concepts we have to look at in terms of junk food or fast food.
Exactly. So I know someone will be thinking, oh, for me, I eat the junk foods, but at the end of the day, I go to the gym. I ever heard someone make a very profound statement. It sounded very funny, but it was true. He said that we don't lose weight in the gym, but we lose weight in the kitchen. So it's a matter of what you eat more. Then also, not to sound very religious, but why not? One particular person who made a very profound statement is actually very related to, or quite related to, nutrition. Jesus Christ would say that, or yes, I think I read it in the Bible, where it was talking about the fact that it's not what comes out of you that defiles you, but what enters you. It says that what enters you doesn't defile you, but what comes out of you. So you realize that you can put something inside of you, and then what will come out of you will be the obesity we're talking about. So you realize that we are now having much more young people having childhood obesity. Guess what? Last week, I sent someone to the lab that she should have blood test being done for her. It was calcium. So the child went to the lab, and guess what? We're not getting a line for the child. We tried many times, so they had to call me to come. I sat down for an hour. I tired myself an hour before I even could get as little as just one meal for that particular lab. So you realize that we're having a lot of children having childhood obesity and all those things. So what do you think young people can do, or parents of young people can do, so that we don't have these things or these risk factors that bring these communicable diseases like our fast foods? What do you think we can do? Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to touch a bit on what you said. So there was a study that was done in 2016 by Fayorsey et al. And it was actually a systematic review and meta-analysis, okay, to ascertain the impact of these non-communicable diseases, and was shown that about 43% of Ghanaian adults are either obese or overweight. 43%. And out of this 43%, a large proportion of them are found in the urban areas. Oh. And lastly, most of these people are actually females. Yes, so that shows that it's not just a global problem, but it's also a local problem and has to be dealt with.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Oftentimes, when we hear these heart attacks, because we watch a lot of movies and that's where we see them, we often think that it's far away from us, but it's actually very, very, very close to us. One of the ways by which we can also help ourselves to be able to make sure that we are taking good care of ourselves so that we don't come down with these communicable diseases related to fast food is exercise. And I chanced on a particular statistic by the WHO, World Organization, saying that, guess what? The exercise we're talking about that reduces our risk for this non-communicable disease like the hypertension, the diabetes and all, it's just 90 minutes of how many hours in the week? I think we have about 146 or so, 144 hours, so about 140 hours. So we just take 90 minutes out of that 140 hours per week. That alone can reduce your risk for having this communicable disease. So I want to come to you, Fayorsey, as well. Apart from exercises, what else do you think we can do to make sure that we reduce our
Thank you very much. But I would like to quickly go back to something you mentioned about childhood obesity.
Right.
And one of the things we like to say in pediatrics is that children play.
Good.
And more so, even this year, I think we celebrated the first ever International Day of Play. So children have a right to play. I think as time has gone on, we've become, should I say, protective of our children to the point that we don't even give them the opportunity to play. This means that they don't have any way to perform any physical activity, because playing is a way children actually engage themselves in some form of physical activity. So I would encourage parents to allow children to play in a safe environment that helps them to be able to do some form of physical activity. But aside physical activity, I think one of the ways we can actually improve our health when it comes to nutrition is to actually set times for eating. I think that most of us actually just eat when we feel hungry. But what if you actually have set times to actually eat? Then you can control it. So eating for most of us has been a response mechanism. It's more of putting out a fire instead of preventing a fire from starting.
Makes sense.
So in the morning, whether I'm hungry or not, I know this is the proportion of food I have to eat. So I eat food at this time in the morning so as not to get hungry in the afternoon. Because by the time I'm supposed to be hungry again in the afternoon, I would have eaten. And then I know that I'm supposed to eat before 6. So maybe by 5:30, 5:45, later 6, I take in my supper, right? So that's another way of actually using nutrition aside physical activity to actually help us to be able to understand. But also, we can always go to the hospital. There are dietitians around. And I think as doctors, it's our role to actually direct people to other health professionals. So maybe people may not be aware of the presence of other health professionals or how much value it brings to them. But we can say, you know what, you need to see a dietitian. You need to see a physical therapist, or you need to see a physiotherapist to help you with some form of physical activity or guide your physical activity that can help you probably lose weight, or a dietitian can help you probably have a meal plan for yourself based on preferences. Probably a vegetarian, probably don't like this kind of protein. They can help you plan around it. So,
type of occupation
exactly.
that you do.
All those things are a way of helping you,
right,
aside physical activity, to be able to have a proper nutrition.
Okay, good. So sometimes people don't really understand or will not get the import of a discussion until you tell them the benefit of it. Do you think that what we eat would affect the way we feel and the way we handle things? Do you think so? Yeah. And how?
So there's a very strong correlation between what we eat and how we feel. And there's actually a term for it. Right. It's been termed food mood relationship. Okay. And some also say emotional eating. And to tackle this, let me tackle it looking at it in the positive light and also in the negative light. So science shows that there are two hormones we usually refer to as good feeling hormones. We have the serotonin and dopamine. And it's been shown that certain foods tend to increase the production of these two neurotransmitters in our bodies. And what they do is that they help to improve our mood. So they actually decrease the risk for one getting depressed and also anxious. And the second one would be omega-3 fatty acids, which we usually find in fish, walnuts, and also flax seeds. It's been shown to also improve our mood and also enhance brain function. And so it's really boils down to us to take advantage of this knowledge and put it to use. And the negative light, as I mentioned earlier, we have emotional eating. Certain people tend to food for comfort. When they are depressed, when they are sad, when they are anxious, they rather turn to food, which usually are the junk food. And it's been shown that these junk foods, they are mainly calorie dense and nutrient poor. They are not balanced diet. A balanced diet is a meal that has all the food groups in their right proportions. But most of the time, these junk foods, they are just containing so much sugar, salt, and other substances that do not help us in any way. And what they've been shown to do is that they increase blood levels. They increase blood sugar levels, and that leads to worsen mood disorders like depression and anxiety. So it creates this whole cycle where you're not in the mood, you feel irritable, you go to eat, and it worsens and worsens and leads to unhealthy weight gain. Then I have your diabetes and the hypertension.
Yeah, that's right. But you see, your take.
Yeah, so I think she stressed on how these foods, in terms of the biochemical sense of it, but also I think we need to understand that when we gain weight or feel unhappy about our appearance, it can also affect our self-esteem. And mental health is a very big part of our health, and sometimes we neglect it. But essentially, having all these foods and eating inappropriately can affect our physical appearance. And may not be too happy about it, and it goes a long way to affect how we even see ourselves, how we interact with people. So essentially, I think that foods indeed have a good correlation with our everyday life. So it's important that we pay more attention to it and then do better as to what we're taking, because it's better to eat as a way of preventing disease than to taking medicines to cure diseases.
All right, that's right. And then there's also another if you're a young person, you are listening to us, you may want to listen to whatever we are saying. It's actually very, very good. I was asking a question in relation to how we eat, or what we eat, and then how we feel. I've realized that oftentimes people will say that when I'm going to study, then I don't need to eat so much. Otherwise, when I eat, I would sleep. Or some people also say that I've ever had a client who told me that anytime he's going to school, he doesn't understand why he's been told that coffee actually keeps people awake, but anytime he takes it, he falls asleep. So I asked him what he does with it, and I realized that he's making a mistake. So what he does is, when he's tired, he's going to learn. When he is tired, that's when he actually takes in the coffee. Mm-hmm. And then also when he's taking the coffee, he adds milk to it. And that's the mistake. So when you're taking coffee, you don't need to add milk to it. Otherwise, you would actually sleep, because the milk, when broken down, it releases a certain chemical we call melatonin, which causes you to sleep. And that's how come you will sleep instead of you staying awake. And also, when you are taking in coffee before you study, what happens is that when you gulp it too much, or you don't sip it, instead of sipping it small or little by little till it's done, you gulp it, you'd actually increase the ability of your brain to shut down, because blood would actually go to your GIT so that it's able to break it down, so that it release the chemical that will keep you awake. So when you eat too much, you realize that there's something we call shunting of blood away from your brain. So you may want to listen to us. If you want to keep yourself awake to study for long, then don't take the coffee when you are tired. Take it when you are very, very active. So that by the time you're actually going to sleep, or you feel like you're falling asleep, it has already been released into your blood and you can actually use it. And then also don't add milk to it, because milk will actually cause you to sleep. This would probably be the penultimate discussion or point of discussion. I realized that the reason why people actually choose the junk foods is probably due to certain factors. One of them is affordability. So it's not a matter of people don't know what to take in order for them to stay healthy, but it's the life choices and what affect those life choices. Apart from affordability, what do you think would be the reason why people would want to go in for the junk foods?
Okay, so I think that aside affordability, I think marketing or what is readily available to like in relation to marketing it's one of the things. So we need certain policies. For example, breastfeeding is the most preferred way of taking care of children under 6 months. So they're supposed to be exclusively breastfed. However, you realize that there are certain products that can be given to children who are not being breastfed under 6 months. But if you look online or through the various forms of media, realize that there's no advertisements for such products because there are certain policies that prevent the advertisement of those products. By so doing, you don't encourage people to do that because breastfeeding has been shown to help prevent diseases like diarrheal diseases in children under 6 months, has been shown to improve IQ. So now we need certain policies that prevents the advertisements beyond a certain point of junk foods. Because when junk foods are advertised to a certain point, that is the immediate thing that hits people's eyes. In the reverse also, we need certain policies that encourage the advertisement of food products that are in the right quantities of nutrition. So if it's in the right quantity of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and all other minerals, we should have more advertisement of those products. Now, we need to also do more to ensure that there's the cost barrier for certain products that are more nutritious and better for our health to be less costly compared to junk food. Because, of course, you need to consider people's pockets when you're doing that. If I have to get a salad, which is good for my health, and is more costly than junk food that is easily and readily available, I think anybody would easily go for that junk food. So we need certain policies as part of the 5 ways of prevention. In as much as we can be doing screenings, we can educate people, we need certain policies at the primordial level of disease prevention that can prevent certain non-communicable diseases. So for example, in certain countries, you have certain bans on alcohol for certain particular days, or advertisement of alcohol that's in certain percentages, right? You have a ban on certain foods that are high in this amounts of fats or in amounts of sugars. These bans can actually help us to control the intake of products, because if they are not being advertised, then there's not a huge market for it like that, and then we can prevent the spread of non-communicable diseases.
Right.
So another factor would be lack of willpower.
Right.
So I think most of the youth, excuse me to say, we are probably very lazy. We think we can't make time to decide to eat healthily. Yes, everyone is in the rush, has so many things to do. But I always say that if you think eating healthy meals are time-consuming or expensive, then try having to live with a chronic disease for the rest of your life, where you have to be buying medications constantly, going for reviews on a regular basis and all that. That is really time-consuming and also very, very costly. And so I think it's high time we just decide to sit, plan. If your weekdays are very busy, you can decide to use your weekends to cook in bulk. And there you get to control the ingredients that you use in making the food. So it's actually advised that a day you are supposed to use just about 1 teaspoon of salt. And even for sugar, 12 level teaspoons. But most of us take these drinks alongside our tea, put a lot of sugar. We exceed this. And so if we decide to prepare our own meals, we'll do ourselves a whole lot of good. And secondly, talking about the exercise, you don't have to go to the gym to exercise. Right now, there are lots of online resources. There are YouTube videos. You can be at home and exercise. And it doesn't have to be a 2-hour sort of thing at a go. You can break it down. You can take a 30 minutes walk, jogging, cycling, And it's one step at a time. And so it's feasible. It can be done. There's always a way to keep yourself healthy. You can go for the healthier option. Instead of going for sugary drinks, you can take fruits and vegetables as a snack. Yeah, so that's what I think.
Perfectly understood. Something funny came to mind when we're discussing. I actually sometimes feel like I'm exercising when I actually see a lot of people on social media exercising. I feel like my brain is also exercising anyway. That's a little bit of it all. That's a very funny part of it. So this is the last one. I want us to talk like medical doctors now. Tell people what to do when they are actually ill, because all part of nutrition. Because you realize that you hear someone saying that, well, when you take this particular food stuff, it's going to help you control this particular thing. Also, when he even has this particular symptom, he will still be at home. Let's say I've ever heard one of my clients say that when she takes in moringa, her blood pressure goes down.
Sure.
Do you get it? So she's putting it in her meals, putting it in her drinks, put everywhere, to the extent that her siblings and then the people who take care of her, she's actually an old person who take care of her, brought pictures of what she does. Everything looks green. Every food looks green in the house just because of her. So you realize that people are also using, or they are trying to read around to find solutions to their health bits when it comes to nutrition. What do you think you can tell them when it comes to, let's say you are sick, what you should do? Should I just go by the nutrition stuff, or I should just read online and then just have it sorted, or I should come immediately to the hospital? What should the person do first?
Okay. So I think that it's only in healthcare that when people are sick, the first thought process is to read online. But I've not seen anybody like who has a problem in their car and Googles the car's problem. Or it's so strange that probably when they have a case in court, they would like to Google, when I go to court, what should I tell the judge?
Exactly.
It's the same thing. I mean, when you have a problem and it has to do with finance, you go to the bank. When you have a problem that has to do with your car, you go to the mechanic. When you have a problem that has to do with healthcare, please come to the hospital. I think that we've done a lot to educate people and try to put information out there. But the information would have, or the conversation we'll have alone as medics, is very different from what we put out there for various reasons, to be able to communicate with each other and for people to understand. It's different from the level of conversation we'll have with each other. Else to make going to medical school pointless, because why then are we going to medical school
for how many years? 6
for
years?
6 years. And some people even go 7.
Yeah.
If all the information is just online. So everything is tailored to individuals, It's patient-centered. You can read something online. But yes, maybe online is talking about you having hypertension, but you probably have hypertension and diabetes. And what you don't know is that probably this hypertensive medication does not work for you, particularly because of certain reasons. So certain things are patient-tailored. And in as much as we do, I think it comes from a very good place. We like to give out information like, oh, I did this and it worked for me. I went to the hospital, they gave me this medication. Yeah, it probably worked for you. But if your friend who has ulcer takes the diclo you've been taking for your pain, you are probably worsening their ulcer, because people with ulcer are not supposed to be taking NSAIDs like diclo and ibuprofen. So it's always good to consult and let us find a tailored approach for you, what works for you. It helps.
It does.
And then we can know how to help you instead of trying to maybe pick from other people or checking online, because they are actually the right places you should go for medical information online. Right. And not just every place. Some information online is actually wrong, and a lot of it is wrong, except you are picking it from the very appropriate places that you should. So please always visit the hospital if you have any issues with your health care.
Benedicta,
Okay, yes, so
you can tie it with your last words anyway.
we are currently in a day and age where we are promoting preventive medicine instead of the curative one. And so I'd advise that you can do regular health checkups. if you can't do it twice a year, at least yearly, come to the hospital. Let a doctor check you out from head to toe. Run very pertinent labs. And if you have certain family history or certain illnesses, it will be streamlined along that line. And secondly, I would also advise that if you feel symptoms, as Fayorsey said, come to the hospital early, because it gives us the chance to implement certain early interventions. Because most of the time with these, with some illnesses like cancers and all that, you would want to start treatment early in order to have very good prognosis. And so that's what I like to let out there. Seek immediate health care if you're not feeling well. Don't stay at home and try all the herbal concoctions. They actually worsen it. Right now, dialysis is very expensive. So let's advise ourselves and take wise decisions.
Right. Fayorsey, last words.
Yeah, so thank you all for listening to this session of the podcast. We hope that through what we've shared, you'll be able to take your health more seriously. But you have only one life, and we encourage you to take your health. Health is wealth, so protect your health.
So YOLO, you live once, you only live once. All too soon, we've come to the end of this particular podcast. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I want you to like, follow, share, and subscribe.